less than 3% of financial planners have written even a single financial plan in their career. Even CFPs, yeah, I think I'll bet you that less than 5% of certified financial planners have written more than, like, you have to write one financial plan to get your CFP, the sample one. The 95% of CFPs have probably not written another one of that quality. Yeah, a comprehensive one. Well, what I find is a lot of the financial planning software is built for what I call a fake plan. You put in the client's name and address, you put in their income, and it's a bunch of assumptions. It prints off a bunch of glossies. There's your financial plan. Now let's talk about investments. And it's 10 minutes. I've had people say, I got a financial plan. I went to the bank. I said, how long did it take? 10 minutes. What does the plan say? What are you supposed to do? When are you retiring? I don't know. What's the lifestyle when you're retiring? I don't know. What do you have to do to get there? I don't know. Where is your plan? I don't know. Okay, you don't have a plan. If you have a financial plan, you should know I'm retiring when I'm 62 on $97,000 a year, and that includes $15,000 a year for travel. And to get there, I have to put $15,000 a year into my RSP. Like, you decide on the lifestyle you want to have when you retire. Then you work out exactly how much you need before and after tax. You work back. So to get there, how much do I have to put away, and what kind of return do I have to make on it? You make a plan, and then you do it. So you should know exactly how much you have to put away every year and how you have to invest it. And if you don't know that, you don't have a plan.
This is the Personal Finance Show.
Hi, I'm Bo Humphreys, and this is the Personal Finance Show. Ed Rempel wants you to know that the conventional personal finance wisdom most people follow might not be the best for your financial situation. Unconventional wisdom, as he calls it, might be your path to financial success. Ed has been a financial planner for over 25 years and a tax accountant for over 35 years. He's a certified financial planner, chartered professional accountant, and certified hedge fund specialist. Ed has spent the majority of his life actually creating comprehensive financial plans for Canadians and continuously building his knowledge base to help his clients reach financial freedom in the most optimal and efficient way. Ed has so much unconventional wisdom to share that one podcast episode wasn't enough. We didn't even get to talk about all the really interesting investing and tax strategies that he's become an expert in over the years. So, for the first time, stay tuned for part 2 of this interview that we're going to record in the coming months. Ed joined me in the studio in Hamilton to share part 1 of his personal finance story.
Growing up, my father was a missionary and a minister, so, I mean, we were always provided for, but there was never a lot of money around, or we never.
How do you get money as a minister?
Well, they
or
get
missionary?
there's a conference that gives you a bit of income. Mostly, they give you as a missionary, you get a free place to stay, and they pay your expenses. You don't really get.
So there's nothing extra then,
right? And as a minister, you get a salary, but it's paid by a church, so it's.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of money.
it's low, yeah.
Okay, so you didn't have
like
any real access or anything like that.
Right.
So
my first noticeable memory was in my teens getting summer jobs. And what I found is actually by doing jobs that other people don't want to do, but that what you can work hard at, you can do well. So I had a job hoeing beets on a sugar beet farm.
Nobody wants to do this. Why don't they want to? Well, it's hard work.
It's hard work, yes. And it was funny because on the one side there was a pig farm, the other side was a chicken farm.
Oh no!
And I can tell you, chickens are worse.
Yeah, and the smell, right?
They're way worse, yes. But anyway, so I was being paid by the row. I don't know, I can't remember what it was, like a couple bucks per row, and a row is 3/4 of a mile long.
Okay.
So I actually set my own targets. So I had worked a 10-hour day. I would do 25 minutes down, 25 minutes back, and then take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
And so I actually ended up doing a mile and a half of hoeing every half hour.
Wow.
And so by forcing myself to do that all the way through. So this was, I'm talking way back, like a few decades ago, right? In a summer job, I made $2,000,
Yeah.
which was my university tuition.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sounds like the cost of tuition. So did you work summer job, like this is between university or this is before university even?
This was before university.
Yeah, so
while I was in high school.
You got your tuition paid. Did you do this every year in high school?
I did that 2 years.
Yeah.
And I spent 2 years working for a guy across the street from me that owned a rock quarry.
Okay.
So we would drive out and get these rocks, like these huge thick rocks, and then I would have to take a sledgehammer and a chisel and like chisel them, and like they broke off into thin pieces that were used on a stone facing for a house. So anyway, by doing these hard manual jobs and driving myself, I find I can actually make good money even as a high school student.
For sure. And so where did this discipline come from? Is this from your parents? Like, where did you get this drive to do that?
I don't know whether I think I've just always been that way. Like I was a hardworking student as well. I always tried to get top marks, and that's just kind of how I've always been.
You're a good kid. You're willing to do things nobody wants to do.
I was competitive, would play board games, and I was always the one that tried to win and tried to figure out what's the strategy to win the game.
Just to skip ahead for a sec, and we'll try not to have any spoilers, but did this concept of being able to do things that other people don't want to do, has this helped you throughout your life?
Well, I guess where I would say it is that the biggest opportunities in life are usually not where everybody else is looking.
Yeah.
And even in my career, it's not. I've done it differently from what most financial planners, most people do.
Okay, so that philosophy that you had or mindset, that did kind of color the rest of this trajectory, which is a word I'm using way too often these days. But that's what it is.
Good word.
Right? It's a good word. It's the best word to explain like how you get from point A to point B. So point A here is you're a kid figuring out how to make money, more money than most people are making, and only in the summer too, so you can then focus on your studies, as you said, to get good marks so you could get into university. Was that the plan?
Yes.
And you already have money saved up because you knew your parents weren't going to be able to pay, right? Or what, would you get assistance?
Actually, no. They did cover it for me, so
they
I actually
did.
had extra spending money.
How were they able to afford that?
It was just priority for them.
Really?
Yes.
That's
Even
really
on
awesome.
what they made, it was just priority.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. And I guess, like you said, it wasn't like, $100,000 or anything like that. It was $2,000 a year, and then you paid for your living expenses, or were they able to
No,
cover
I was
that
living
too?
in residence, too.
Nice. So they paid for residence and tuition on such a low salary. I always put out the note to parents, like, you could probably make it happen for your kids, give them a little bit of a leg up if you start early, right? With RESPs now, and what would you say about RESPs? If I guess your parents might not have had those, they just saved it.
Don't think they existed back then.
But today, what would you say it's a good idea?
Today it's an awesome idea. You want to help your kids get through even more now. There's not a lot of really good careers where you don't need education or where you won't benefit. Even I think going to university is a benefit just on its own, even if you're not working in that career.
Absolutely.
So helping your kids through university, I think, is a huge thing.
Yeah. Okay, so parents, RESPs, do it if you can. You get some free money from the government, which is also nice. It's not tons, but you get some. And it's better than not getting anything free if you just put it in a bank account. And also, not investing is not a great idea either.
Exactly. I always like free money.
Free money is great, right?
You invest it, you get 20% from the government.
Yeah.
You save it for your kids, even if they don't go to university.
But not 20% of everything. Just maxed up to, what is it,
$2,500 a year. You can get up to $7,200 grant total.
Yeah, $7,200.
Yeah, you get $500.
$500. So
it takes 14 and a half years.
14 and a half years. So you could put more than you'll be able to get to the maximum grant amount before you get probably to your maximum investment amount, right? Do people usually? Because that's a 14 years if you start when the kid is.
You could put all the way from birth up to 17.
Yeah.
But you only need 14 and a half years to get all the grant.
all the grant. Okay, so it's like $500 a year if you put that $2,500 in, which is the amount that qualifies for the matching. If you put more than $2,500 in a year, you don't get that 20%. Right. It's 20%, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of the caveat there. Is like everybody thinks like you get free money forever, or you get you don't get $500 a year forever. It's got a maximum, so just in case. But it's free money, $7,200. Okay, so you got school paid for, which is great. So you got money in the bank then while you're going to school?
Well, it means I came out of school with no debt.
Yeah, and the money that you made in the summers, Where did that go?
That was my spending money.
So yeah, good. So that's what you used to do, the things you wanted to do as a teenager.
I wasn't a good saver yet at that point.
Yeah, so you didn't learn about saving, which is quite common. People they don't really think about saving until after university, maybe in their 20s, but often not until their 30s.
Yeah. I was about 30 before I started saving.
Okay, yeah. So what did you go to school for?
I went in as an accountant.
Yeah.
So I got my accounting degree first.
And where from?
And you take it all at night school. At that time, it was 5 years of night school, so working full time plus taking classes at night.
Oh, you get a bachelor's degree first?
You required it now, but you didn't at that time.
Okay, so you were working, and so wait, when did you start going to school then?
I was 19. I took 1 year general arts university.
Yeah,
and then I went into accounting. So it was 5 years where I worked full time plus had classes at night and studied. So
was it an accounting job in the day too?
Yeah, I had a couple accounting jobs.
Yeah,
yes.
so you just started, like, how do you get a job in accounting out of high school? You just like, I want to do this. Is it bookkeeping to start, or?
Well, you start with so my first job was actually interesting. It was with the Bank of Canada. The ones that print the notes. So it was an office job.
Okay.
But I got to see a bit of the behind the scenes, what happens.
Yeah.
So they're the bank's bank. And the ones that print out the money, so I got to see how they issue new money. And
yeah, so I've talked about this in previous episodes, but like the Bank of Canada is not a typical bank that we think of when we think of banks.
The banks can put their mony there, yes.
They put their money, like, why does a bank need to put money in a bank? Well,
they have excess deposits that they can put there, and they can withdraw because they have different amounts of money that they need to manage their operations.
Yeah.
Plus, there's also the bills. So the new bills get issued by the Bank of Canada.
That's right.
And then when a bill gets old, the banks send it back to the Bank of Canada, and so we'd count it. So sometimes my room, my job for a day is me and one other guy in a room, of course, all glass, so everybody can see, right?
Yeah.
And so our job is to count, 500 million in small bills.
You're counting the money. I was thinking
That's
you got an
job.
Office job, like, pushing papers, but you're actually handling the money that they make?
And then, yes, old bills, we would drill holes in them and then throw them in the furnace. That always kind of pained me because
really,
we're throwing in the furnace. We're wasting this. I could use that money.
Okay, this is great because I've never had anybody who dealt with like actual creation and destruction of money before. So you actually have to. The bills come by. They're recalled or whatever. They're too old.
The old ones.
Like,
yes.
How old does a bill have to be?
Once they get really, I don't know, the banks
or they're worn out.
They get worn. Yes.
Oh, I see.
And the banks collect them and then they send them back. They send them back to us, and then you got to drill holes in them so that they're worthless.
Yeah.
And then you actually go and throw them in the fire. It's like,
wow. So do retailers know this? Like, if I come up with an old bill that has a old drilled in it, they won't accept it?
I don't know that retailers know that, but bankers would know it.
Yeah,
yes.
Bankers would know. So if you went to deposit, it would look weird. I mean, if there was a hole in a bill, I don't know if anybody would take it. Like, if there's a rip, they can tape it, right? And that happens, especially with our new money, right? If it rips once, it'll rip the whole thing through if it gets a tear. Yeah, I never thought about it. If there was a hole in a bill that somebody gave me.
3 holes.
3 holes.
Three
okay,
holes.
Well, that's pretty clear. That's like.
So three even holes spread across the bill.
And who knows if they have this similar process now. I don't know if you've kept up with it, but
I don't know what they do
that was
now,
the process of the day. Okay, that's interesting.
The cool part was when they issue new bills.
Yeah, okay.
So we would get them like these crisp new bills, and they come a 4x4 sheet, so 16 bills, and it's 1,000 high, and they would actually come in these sheets. So we would have this big saw that would actually cut them.
You're cutting the bills.
Yes, and back in those days, one of the fun things that people used to do if you go out for an evening is they'd pay something called, I don't know if you use this word on this here, but bullshit poker. Ever played bullshit poker?
You can say anything you want. No, but I don't know. What is bullshit poker?
Basically, it's using poker, but your hand is whatever your bill is.
Okay.
Right? So you're counting, as you're saying, I have two threes and 2 fours, and you have to bid higher than the other person bid, but your card is whatever your bill is. The serial number on the bill.
Serial number.
Because we had new ones, I actually was able to swap for a bill. So I walked around with a $20 bill that had, if I remember right, 11 nines in it. And just walking around with this bill, and every once in a while somebody would challenge me at bullshit poker.
So what does 11 nines mean in bullshit poker?
Well, it's the same thing. I could say I have 11 nines, and no one's going to believe me. They're going to go bullshit.
Interesting. Okay,
it's a guarantee. It's like playing poker, and you know for a fact you're going to get a royal flush.
You're saying you were able to pick and choose what bills, like, would you just like you had a situation where you could exchange
It
them?
was just very rare. They would just all come in, but occasionally you could get your supervisor to agree that.
Can I switch this
give
one?
me
I
one,
want
yeah.
this one. Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty innocent, right? As long as everyone's paying attention to the process, right?
Yes.
And okay, so this is first job. How, like, you just applied for this job?
Yeah, I just applied for.
Did you like money? Like, was there something about this that you were like, I like money? Well, obviously, you're going to accounting school.
At that
You must
point, I just
like
wanted an
money.
office job.
That was it.
I just wanted an office job because government type jobs, you don't have to work too much.
Okay,
But I got bored there actually pretty quickly, and I got an accounting job.
Okay.
Next job was actually interesting. It was for a savings and mortgage company.
Sorry, just to stop you. I don't know if anyone's ever said I got bored with a job, so I went and got an accounting job. It's really the not really the most exciting thing in people's minds.
I got bored counting money.
Yeah. Okay. So you went to a job where you were just dealing with money on paper. And
yes. Now it's just on paper.
Yeah.
But actually, it was thinking back, it was the most amazing thing. So this was 1982. So if you know about interest rates, that was the peak of the interest rates.
Okay, so what's like a savings account rate at this time?
So at the time, we had 5-year GICs at 19 7/8 and 5-year mortgages at 23 3/4.
Wow.
And people were taking the 5. If you think, why would you take a 5-year? Why did you take a 1 year? Because it'll come down.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people were losing their homes because the mortgage they had was 11% and it was coming due, and now it's 20.
So
22
they were
3/4.
all interested in locking in for 5 years because they thought it was going to get higher.
They thought it was going to 30 and 40.
Course,
so people would lock in at crazy high rates. And the thing is, you think 19 7/8% on a 5-year GIC sounds awesome, right?
Yeah.
But if you go after taxes and inflation, that's the lowest interest rates we'd ever seen. Like inflation was about 13.
Oh, okay.
And if you're paying half of it in tax, you clear 10. Minus taxes and inflation, you're like -3, -4.
Okay, so can we break that example down then? So say I got $1,000, right? And let's say $100. So in a year, and let's round it to 20%.
Yeah. So I make $20 of
interest.
So let's say I pay $10 of tax on it.
Yeah. So right?
You
might.
So I only have $10 left.
Yeah.
Inflation is 13.
So that means the cost of everything just went up by 13%. So now I want to buy something with this $10, and I can't.
I can buy less than I could buy a year ago, even though I made 19 7/8 interest.
Okay, and so if we contrast just to today, for example, let's say what's a mortgage rate now? 4, 3, or we
3.
Yeah, 3. Inflation is around 1,
about 2,
1 or 2. So
actually, and now a GIC. A GIC, you're probably getting 2%.
Yeah.
Right? You get 2, you pay, if you half pay interest, you get 1, -2 inflation, you're -1.
So you're beating inflation maybe maybe with a GIC if you're lucky, if you get a good one, right? But a bank account or even a high interest savings account just keeps up with inflation these days, right?
Right. Before tax.
And meanwhile, at least back in the 80s though, a savings account it wouldn't have been up at the 19 with the GIC.
No, but savings accounts were like 10-12%.
But if inflation was 13,
inflation's 13.
So they're usually the savings accounts are just keeping up with inflation.
Yes.
Do you find that standard?
Yeah. Well, usually they're just a little bit lower than inflation, but
yeah.
But high interest savings might keep up with inflation, but
But then those are hard to find, and they're usually not. High interest savings account, maybe not as accessible, maybe not as convenient because maybe they're with an online bank. Maybe you have to set up a new account. Maybe they're only temporary, like a promotional rate, right? You never know when it's going to go back down, right? It's like, oh, great, 3%, but how long is it going to last? And then, oh, right, I got to move my money out of there, right? So, yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is we just had what I call the big bond bubble. So, bonds go up when interest rates are falling. So they peaked in 1982, and the bottom was 2015. So we have 35 years of interest rates where interest rates went down almost every year, and bonds actually did almost as well as stocks in that period of time. So people will look back now and say, the last 20 years, bonds did almost as well as stocks. Problem is, this was the bond bubble where interest rates, it's like the tech bubble in stocks. It's a period of time that's unlike any other time in history.
So we can look at it to compare to predict the future.
Yes. So to me, if you look at any history of bonds, you can't look at anything between 82 and 2015 because it's unlike anything we're going to see in our life again, where rates are falling every year. It's
really, as opposed to the stock market, which we can sort of look at ebbs and flows over the last 50 years to kind of predict where it's hopefully headed in big gaps, right?
Yeah, the stock market, you have periods like we had the tech bubble, the late 90s. You had a few years where it was ridiculously high, and then of course we had it fell in 2002, right? But it's a short period of time. Bonds, it was a 35-year, because interest rates were falling. Now, if anything, they're going to be flat or rising. It's also falling. For example, I found a lot of people now are buying dividend stocks, and dividend stocks, to the extent that you're buying them for the dividend, act like bonds, right? So
they pay out a regular amount.
So from 1982 to 2015, dividend stocks generally did as well or better than the broad stock market, even though they tend to be more mature and slower growing companies. Now 2015 passed, and of course since 2015, dividend stocks have all lagged. Even the dividend aristocrats have lagged the broad market.
And why is that?
It's because they do better when interest rates are falling.
Yes.
We just had a 35-year period of rates falling. That period ended in 2015, and now it's flat or rising rates.
But with dividend stocks, you have the dividends that are being paid out, but you also have the potential of the stock price to increase as well, right?
Right. But if you compare it to a growth stock or a stock that you don't buy for the dividend, you're just buying it for
regular. You want it to double.
Usually, when you buy stocks, you want to buy them for total long-term return is what you want.
Okay.
And to me, it was whether it's a dividend or a capital gain is a detail. I'm more worried about what's the total profit I'm going to make.
So you're saying the total growth of dividend stocks, the dividends plus the growth of the stock itself, have sort of leveled out at this point, as opposed to being, you're saying they're growing over the last 35 years with the bonds. Dividend stocks, especially ones with higher dividends, people think of them sometimes like a bond proxy. They're buying them for the dividend, not because they grow. No.
That's just the side.
Buy and hold, you get your dividends.
You're getting your dividend, right? Well, so that dividend, when interest rates rise, that dividend gets worth less, so your stock is worth less.
The dividend itself goes down.
If interest rates are falling, then your dividend alone is giving you an advantage. Like if you have a stock paying a 2% dividend, and interest rates are 2%, but then interest rates fall to 1%, now your dividend is worth more. The stock is worth more.
Yeah.
But if your dividend is 2% and then interest rates rise from 2% to 3%, well, now your dividend stocks tends to go down.
People are going to go and get interest instead of dividends because it's the better option.
Or you just buy a growth stock instead, right? Because you can get other stocks that will do better. So that's why I think dividend stocks did well for 35 years, generally better than the broad stock market, but probably not what's going to happen going forward. And it hasn't happened since 2015.
So this is a good example of things that you know today that you
being there at the peak of the interest
understand.
rates.
And so now you mentioned the interest rates because you were in school. I'm now wondering where you're going with that.
So that was the interest rates. I was there in 82 at the peak. So it was really cool to see. It was a really weird time. An interesting thing that we were doing at the time at our savings company is we had one of our staff would phone every financial institution every morning and ask what the rate was on their 30, 60, 90 term deposits. Yeah. And whatever it was, we would go 1/8% higher and put an ad in the paper. So every day we were the single highest anywhere.
Smart.
Single highest. And all we did is, we got tons of money that came in, and all we did is, a block from us was it was a Laurentian Bank or National Bank, I think it was a Laurentian Bank. Okay. We would go down there, buy a GIC or a term deposit, a 90-day term deposit with them with $100,000 minimum, and it was a 1% higher rate. Okay. So we made a guaranteed 1% on all that money. So we just kept running these ads and putting the money as like riskless, right? So we're paying on a term deposit 13%. Yeah. Right. But then we just walk down. A bunch of people come in and buy a $5,000 and $2,000 term deposits, right? So we go a block away, buy a $100,000 term deposit at 14%, 1% higher.
That's amazing.
And we made 1% on it.
Yeah. So because you had volume of transactions, this 1% actually ended up making a lot of money.
So then I was talking to the guy at Laurentian Bank. Says, so what do you guys do with the money? And he said, well, what we do is we buy these bankers' acceptance notes. Yeah. And minimum investment is $1 million, and we make 0.1 on it.
So it starts with the consumer. buying a GIC from you. Let's say it's $1,000. And then you roll it. You get enough of those, and then or what do you say? Savings notes, were they GICs?
Yeah, there was like 30-day or 90-day term deposit.
Yeah. So you have to keep it in for 30, 60, or 90 days to get the interest rate, and then you guys bundle them together, bring them to another bank, and sell them, and then they bundle everything they get from everyone and sell them to somebody else. Where does it end?
Yeah.
How far does it go?
I don't know what the bankers' acceptances are doing it, but again, they're making 0.1 on it, but it's on $1 million.
But because
right?
it's $1 million, yeah. So like the more money, well, I guess the lesson here is the more money you have, the more money you can make with very little.
That's exactly what I learned from it. And also, it's using other people's money. The consumer comes in, we're using their money, and we're making a 1% on it.
It's genius.
And it's so using other people's money.
So lesson 1, and how old were you this time?
I was in my early 20s.
Early 20s. Okay,
I was still taking my accounting courses.
You're in the accounting course. You're working for you. You tried the Bank of Canada, and then you wanted something more exciting, so you went to accounting, and you're doing this at this savings company.
Settlers Savings and Mortgage.
Smart. Like maybe
in Winnipeg.
In Winnipeg. Okay, so. And then where did you go after that? You're finishing your accounting? Did you stay there until you were done?
Yeah, I was there for a few years. Around the time I got my degree is when I got my next job. So next job actually was in manufacturing. I actually got a controller job. And I was with Simmons, the mattress company.
Okay, yeah.
And which is also, you get to see the whole manufacturing
how
industry.
Mattresses are made.
Yeah, so basically I'm the accountant at the plant.
Yeah.
But I'm in, cost control. And,
yeah, that's right.
And part of the management team over there. It was interesting because I was still like my early 20s.
That's pretty good for early 20s.
I got into accounting because I was good at math.
Yeah.
And at that time I was nerdy and introverted and not that good with people. And here, next thing you know, I've got a management job.
Yeah.
And most days I don't even turn my computer on, right?
You're in meetings,
It's a management job, right?
Yeah.
So I went into accounting thinking I was going to be, in a quiet desk with a calculator.
Yeah, you thought you were going to do...
And that's not what accounting is at all. It's a management job.
With your ledger book. Yeah. Where were computers at this time?
Mainframes as well.
Yeah. So you learned early on that, and I mean, we can talk about later how the evolution of computers in accounting, but...
but being in manufacturing was different. Cause it was interesting, because, manufacturing has kind of left Canada for the most part.
It has,
then, But we were...
Okay.
But I was there to see a lot of what had happened, and actually, it's taught me a lot about investing. Because so I was working for this big company, and then in 1992, there was a big recession. Our profits are down.
Okay.
So and then I learned what happens in a company when the profits are down. That all of a sudden, big scramble, a whole bunch of meetings. We got to get the profits back up. What are we going to do? So of course you lay off people, and I was the cost guy. Right? So we're looking at all of our costs. What can we cut? What can we reduce costs?
And people are the first thing that come to mind, right? But where did you go with it?
Well, we went through everything, every single expense. What can you cut? But actually, we did a few really interesting things at the time that seemed unconventional. So in the mattress industry at the time, the wisdom for 100 years had been the cheapest way to make a mattress is you wait till you get orders for 10 of the same mattress of the same size, and then you make them in bulk, because the more you make, the cheaper they are to make. Because it's
10 minimum
changeover, right?
Yeah, okay.
So it would often take several weeks before you'd make a certain mattress, because we're collecting orders, right?
Sure.
But then, of course, we've always got a warehouse full of things that we've made. We make 10. We only got orders for 3, so we got to make 10, and 7 are sitting in the warehouse. So we went to 2 things. These were common in manufacturing back then. Just in time and make to order.
Okay.
So you get an order for 1, you make 1. We always thought, well, that would be more expensive, but then we focused on how to do the quick change and how to do it effectively.
Okay.
And also, we would order, so you'd go into Sears and buy a mattress.
Yep.
And they would transmit the order to us overnight. We would make them the next morning. Our computer would automatically order the materials. We'd make the mattress new, and it got shipped that night. Like Sears would send it directly to your home.
Really?
So you got a mattress that was made that day.
You could do that?
Yes,
and so that didn't erode your costs,
And because now we said, okay, we just made a commitment. We're just going to we get an order for 1. We're going to make 1.
Yeah.
And we learned how to do the changes effectively. And what we ended up doing is we reduced our inventory by 90%.
Yeah.
And the cost savings were huge. Like, we didn't get obsolescence, and we didn't get damages in the warehouse. And
because you had to, because there was a drive to, where do we find these savings? You had to rethink the way you were doing it.
Right. And the wisdom of 100 years is batches of 10, turns out it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Making one by one, we reduced our inventory by 90%, saved a whole bunch of money. Our profits were back up again.
Amazing.
So part of it I learned is, sometimes it's just you're in a frame of mind where you believe something.
Sure.
It turns out it's completely wrong, and something else is actually that you hadn't thought of is right.
What's the tagline on your site?
Unconventional wisdom.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
It's
that's one of the first pieces of unconventional wisdom there.
Yes, there was an unconventional wisdom.
Yeah.
And I also learned about, so in this in the stock market, this is part of what gives me confidence in stocks long term.
Okay.
Is people always wonder, so whenever there's a market crash where the stocks go down, but they pretty well always bounce. Well, they always bounce back
over time.
Most of the time, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like 88% of the time, they're back in 1 or 2 years.
Sure.
Why do they bounce back? This is exactly why. It's because you're investing in companies, and it's just like when I was at Simmons, big management scramble, we got the profit back up.
Yeah.
And if the profit goes back up, the share price will eventually follow as well, right?
Yes.
So here, if the price had fallen, why? Because our profits were down.
If you realize the stock market is connected to actual businesses behind, and the reason for a lot of downturns is because maybe everyone's not paying attention or not thinking outside the box. It kind of pushes them to do so.
There's a lot of news media and emotion that causes short-term fluctuations in the market, but over time the market follows the profits of the underlying companies.
Yeah,
and if the profits of the underlying companies go up, the market will eventually go up as well, and that's exactly what's happened with the market. So actually thinking back, it was only thinking back years later, I remember why we did that. That's why the profits came back.
That's really interesting comparison, because people just think, oh, it's a bunch of numbers on an exchange, right? And you got to remember there's companies behind these, and they're going to do what they can to keep themselves going and invest in those, right? The example I remember is from Warren Buffett, where Amex, I think, had some kind of a scandal. Then the price went down, right? Like somebody said something or somebody did something, and the stock price went down. And he went into a restaurant and he said, "Are you still accepting American Express?" And they said yes. And then he bought like a bunch of shares of it or something, or like went and sat on the board, because he knew that they were going to be around for a while and this was just a blip, just like you're saying, right? And so we can't like just panic. If you know the company, if you do own individual shares and you know the company, right, you can think, well, is this a good company? Are they going to bounce back? Well, then I'm going to hold.
Yeah.
Right?
And it happens with the broad market as well.
Yeah.
Right. You get in 2008. What happened? The profits of all kinds of companies plunged.
Yeah.
Right. The market went down. Right. But then the profits bounced back. So the stocks will eventually bounce back as too. The market overall does the same thing.
And why do we have this instinct, like when there's a crash like that? Like I don't have this instinct, but I know a lot of people do, to just like take your money out because you think it's just going to keep going lower and lower and lower. Is that it? It's like we never know, so we might as well retract. One
thing that's really horrible for investing in the stock market specifically is the human gut. If your gut is human, then you so I study great investors. Every great investor has a method for calming down their gut.
Sure.
Because your gut will always tell you the wrong thing, right? The market is plunging, it'll say sell, sell, sell. And the market is booming, like the tech stocks, right? In the late 90s. Oh yeah, buy more. So
why? It's such a weird association.
Yeah, it's because our mind tends to think that a trend will continue. And in investing, things go through cycles. Like there's no trend that just goes in a straight line forever.
Yeah, so it's not common thinking in our head to think that when the stocks go down to the bottom, that's the perfect time to buy, because they will eventually go back up. That's not like natural thinking in our head.
If you think logically, that's obviously true.
Yeah,
your gut is not going to tell you that, because the bottom day when it's best to buy is after a whole bunch of down days, right?
And everyone's dismal.
And your gut is going to say panic.
Yeah,
but that's exactly when your head has to kick in and say, you know what, things are really cheap. So, for example, in 2008, early March of 2008, actually it was February, I actually posted on my blog an article about this is the best buying opportunity you can have in
Sure.
your life.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where the bottom was. All I knew is, we were like almost 40% cheaper than we were just a few months ago.
So it doesn't
And
matter if it keeps going down.
It doesn't matter if you get exactly the bottom.
Yeah.
But we're 40% cheaper than we were a few months ago. I have confidence that profits are going to eventually recover and the market will eventually recover. So that's a 40% profit right there, right?
Yeah. If you know that.
That time, calling all clients, it's any money you have, you should put it in. Of course, people were panicking, and it's like I do what I call lifeboat training with clients. When times are good, you talk to them about what are we going to do when we have the next crash, not if,
Yeah.
when. So there's going to be a crash in the next 30 years. There'll be a few more.
Just to jump ahead for a sec, do you actually invest people's money for them currently, or did you at one point?
I did for many years, yes.
Yeah.
Now I do, I guess, indirectly. I refer people to portfolio managers.
Sure. You give them the plan, and you give them the goal of what they need to get from their investments, and then the portfolio managers help them meet that goal? Is that
Yes. So I write a financial plan
Yeah.
for clients, and then they can go off and do it themselves, or I take on a certain number of clients on what I call full service.
Sure.
So full service is between me and my team, we're looking after all parts of their finances.
Okay.
So I find it's useful if I also know the whole package. I know what's
Yeah.
important to them. I know what their goals are. I know. So I refer them to a portfolio manager that I know and that I'm
Like
confident
directly
in.
connected with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and I understand what's happening with the investments. I know exactly what the allocation is, and all that. We do the tax returns for them. I have good contacts for mortgages, so I know kind of all the pieces. We know their cash flow and their net worth, and
Yeah.
so I find if I know everything, it's a far higher level of advice than if I know certain parts. And that's why it's I guess at this point in my career, I only take on clients where I know the whole picture.
Okay.
It's a whole higher level of advice. I only know a part of it, then you can only do so much.
It's just like anything. If you're missing a key piece of information, like if you're doing someone's taxes, for example, and they don't tell you they have a business in another country, well, then how are you going to be able to?
Yeah, a simple example. RSP season. We're phoning a lot of people because I know exactly what their income is.
Sure.
And I did their tax return last year, so I know what other factors they have in their income. So I know that if they put $12,000 in their RSP, that'll be at the 40% bracket. But any more than that, the rest will be at a 30% bracket.
Yeah.
So specifically, you should put $12,000 in and not 13 because that's the amount that will work for you.
You can get really catered advice.
And if you do that, you're going to get a refund of $5,000. So therefore, if you only have 7 today, we can borrow $5,000 from a credit line because I already know you're going to get a $5,000 refund a month later, right? And we'll e-file your tax return. You get them pretty quickly. So you borrow $5,000 from a credit line, you take $7,000 that you have, you get your refund of $5,000 a month later. It's only because I know all the pieces that I can give that advice. Otherwise, to try to do that without having done their tax return or without doing...
And because you're involved, you can make sure that they don't go in and spend that refund and they do actually pay off the credit line, because otherwise it can be dangerous to borrow to invest, right?
Yes, and this RSP top-up ahead of time is bigger. Like you're actually putting you end up putting 30 or 40% more in your RSP every year.
Yeah.
And it's even more than if you waited afterwards till you get the refund, because we're borrowing money from a credit line that we pay back a month later, but you get a 40% refund on it immediately.
People tend to be scared of borrowing to invest, though, but this is a very specific situation.
This is
right?
a 1 month. I'm borrowing it.
Yeah,
I'm borrowing it in February, and I'm going to get a refund in March to pay it back.
Yeah, and now you can get the refund in 24 hours sometimes, right? They're really quick with the CRA these days.
They're paying it usually in a week or two.
Yeah,
right?
If you have direct deposit and like auto notice of assessment, you can get it almost immediately.
Yeah, it's very different. Like borrowing to invest is a long-term thing, a completely different strategy.
Very different.
This is we're borrowing for 1 month money that we know we're getting back,
and it's just to take advantage of the to make the most tax efficient situation, which is your expertise basically.
Yes. So let's say you've got $6,000. What you're gonna do is borrow 4.
Yep.
Put it in. So we put 10,000 in.
Yep.
Now you get a refund of 4. So you get that 4 you borrowed and you got to pay it right back, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't do that, you'd only put 6,000 in.
Yep.
Your refund would only be $2,400,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you could invest the $2,400. Now you get another refund a year from now. But meanwhile, we put 4,000 in.
Yeah.
and you got your refund, and you got that $4,000 invested already. It's money you didn't even have.
And the whatever week or month that you pay in interest is negligible. It's really not compared to the amount of tax savings you're getting. And this is just
only a month
to get it in earlier because time makes a difference. Right.
And now instead of having $8,000 in my RSP, I just put $10,000 in. And so from doing this, I can put 20% more in my RSP every single year without using more cash flow.
And just generally, would you have an idea of how much that might, like, say, shave off somebody's like financial independence day or retirement date? Like,
it's huge. Think if you could up your contributions by 20% every year, it's a huge amount extra. RSP top-up strategy.
Yeah.
Simple. If you know all the parts, it's a simple concept. You want to make sure you get it right because you're borrowing $4,000 from a credit line. I want to make sure the client's actually going to get a $4,000 refund.
That's right.
Because if they don't, then they're going to be mad at me.
That's on you, and you can only know this if you said, but I think it's worth repeating, if you know all the parts, and you have knowledge of many years of doing this.
I know what their job is. I know all the deductions they have. I know what investments they have, so I have a good idea of what taxable investment income they're going to have, right? Plus, so I've done their tax return the year before, so I often do it in detail. Actually, we'll take their last year's tax return, make one or two. If the RSP was this amount, how much would the refund be? And I actually I know exactly where the tax bracket breaks are. So this much is in this bracket, more gets into a lower bracket.
I find these very interesting analyses as well. I mean, not every people probably think these things are boring, but just to be able to get more money or more tax back and then more money into the RSP account.
Even though I'm not working as an accountant, having been an accountant and got all the tax knowledge, has been hugely beneficial. And tax is cool. Like, investing, you make money long term. Taxes, I can tell you exactly how much you're going to get, and you're going to get it right away.
But you say you're not working as an accountant, but you're doing people's taxes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that? I mean, what you mean? You're not working like
I'm not doing accounting.
Not doing accounting in the corporation or something.
Yeah, I just do their tax returns.
Yeah,
but it's the tax knowledge. It's very valuable. It's a huge piece of the whole puzzle. If you optimize all your tax all the way through your life.
Yeah, it's people don't even think about it, and it's huge. Okay, so let's pause and go back.
Yes.
So you are working. You finished your accounting degree and working at Simmons.
Yes. So from there, actually, that's when I started my financial planning practice.
Yeah. Why?
I guess I got tired of working for the man, working for the big company, and so I've always been the type that I thought I knew better than my bosses, and I wanted to be self-employed. But I just gotten married, and we just bought a house.
Okay.
And so my wife thought she'd married, the accountant with the salary and the pension.
Yeah.
And, a year later I show up and say, I want to be a financial planner. It's a 100% commission job, no pension. And we just bought the house.
Yeah.
So, of course, what her words were, as soon as we pay the mortgage off, you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
And thinking, of course, I will fail, but at least she will have her job.
Okay. So what did you do that?
We put the mortgage on a 3-year amortization. We paid it off over 3 years.
Wow.
And in those 3 years, I took my CFP, Certified Financial Planner degree. So I was still working Simmons during the day, taking my courses at night. We paid off our mortgage in 3 years. And also at the same time, I was trying to get clients. And, as an accountant, making cold calls was...
Yeah, at the time. So you're trying to get clients while you're studying for your CFP. Because you got to have...
working full-time, studying for CFP, and trying to get clients.
And living really frugally, right? You must have to be able to pay off the mortgage.
Just made huge payments every 2 weeks. Big payment. So we just changed it to a 3-year amortization and just made the payments.
Was it hot dogs for dinner? Like, well, how did you afford to do this?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We both had good jobs and was making a bit of extra, and we just did it.
And it makes me wonder how many people are in this situation where, if they really wanted to do that, if there was motivation, could they just shift their expenses to that?
Well, see, most people will spend whatever they make.
Yes.
And for us is, we just got married, so we weren't used to spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we had a lot extra, so we put all of it on the debt.
Okay.
And we just paid it off. And I only did it because that's what my wife insisted that I could do. And actually, so I was lucky at the time. I got a teaching financial planning gig. It was
Really?
yeah. So with the dealership I was with, the credit unions were just getting into mutual funds and financial planning. So I got a job writing courses on introduction to financial planning, introduction to mutual funds. So, and I was teaching. It was me and a couple of the other guys were teaching all the big the advisors at all the big credit unions. So we taught 300 advisors at credit unions.
Yeah, what a great way to learn for yourself.
Write a week-long course on financial planning and
that's a way to be an expert.
Go teach it. Yeah, and I found doing that was amazing. Like writing a course forces you to organize all your thinking.
Absolutely.
And to do that early in my career was actually really useful to be able to do that. And
so you had your method. You had what you wanted to do down pat.
I had a method. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had limited knowledge at that point, but I had a method. And it's funny that I'm teaching. I've only been a financial planner for like 2 years, and I'm writing the course.
You're already doing it.
but
it's just organizing the stuff you learned, right? I mean, really, and being able to communicate that to others. You were saying you're an introverted geek. I think those are the words that you used earlier. But you can't be that now.
Well, part of it changed. So I met my wife Anne taking the Dale Carnegie course.
Okay.
So the sales rep said, if you take the Dale Carnegie course, it'll change your life.
And what is the Dale Carnegie?
It's teaching self-confidence through public speaking.
Sure,
because public speaking is the number one fear of most people.
It is.
It's ahead of death.
They'd rather die, yeah.
Death is number 4.
I don't get that.
When I was younger, I was terrified of public speaking, but I took this course. I met my wife, and of course, it did change my life. And she ended up becoming the top instructor for them a couple years later. Like in the 90s, she was their top instructor.
For the Dale Carnegie people.
Yes. So, and I learned so much about self-confidence. And if I hadn't done that, I would never have been able to, make cold calls and actually go up and write a course and then go teach people. And being confident speaking to people is a learned thing. You can be naturally introverted, but you can learn to be an effective communicator.
So, okay, you're teaching CFPs, now you're getting clients?
Yes. So at the end of the 3 years, mortgage was paid off. My side hustle was making as much money as my full-time accounting job.
Wow.
And I had my CFP degree.
And what decade are we in now?
1997.
So in the late 90s.
Yes.
And, side hustles are huge now. Not a big thing to talk about then. And so you're doing what a lot of people are like, start your blog, wait till it makes as much as your day job, then quit that. You did that in the late 90s. Well done.
Exactly. So then at that point I quit my job and I was a full financial planner full time.
Sail on forward. And
so initially working from the house, and then my wife actually noticed that he looks pretty good. Like she's in the morning, getting out, scraping the car and driving off. I'm in my house
like
coat with a coffee, waving. So, but it was only a year later that there was all kinds of admin work and all kinds of other work, and she was actually really good connecting with people, right?
Yeah.
So about a year later, she quit her job, and we did it together as a team ever since.
Nice. But do you still work together?
We still work together now.
Really? Well, what are the roles? Like what? You're the financial planner.
Yeah, we're both financial advisors.
Yeah.
now.
Oh, you both are financial.
Yeah, I'm the more I'm the one that writes the financial plans, but
Yeah.
she's the more relationship with existing clients and.
Oh, that's amazing. I had no idea. I just kind of assumed it was Ed doing it solo.
I mean, she started out as just doing admin for me, and then she became a coach, and she got involved.
Well, what was she doing for work at the time, if you don't mind?
Well, she was a management job. She was with LePage's, the white glue you ate as a kid.
Okay, yes.
So she was the materials manager there. Like, she was also in manufacturing.
Okay.
Making this stuff.
So obviously, you guys are really good with numbers, and really good at both of you with people.
And then she took a personal coaching course.
That's on top of the Carnegie, or
after the Carnegie? Yeah. So that was kind of a lot of what she brought as the relationship part to our.
I like this. I like this continuous learning and growing aspect. Yeah. So my parents did that too. My dad was a dentist. And my mom was running the office, dental receptionist, dental assistant.
So you get home at the end of the day, you can't say, "So how was your day?"
That's right. So yeah. I mean, if you could talk about that for a sec, do you just make sure you always have time for yourself?
Yeah. You need some space. You need some of your own activities.
Yeah. Own activities.
Yeah. You just need that sometimes.
And well, now though. In the day, like, are you guys, like she'll make sure you have information, or you're putting the plans together, and then does she deal with the clients? You're dealing with the clients. How does it go?
Well, we do a lot of meetings jointly.
Yes.
But I'm more focused on new clients and the more complex situations.
Yeah.
And she's a lot of our existing clients. There's a lot of follow up, like regular things that have to be done, and so all the regular reviews and mortgages coming due and activities. There's all kinds of things that when you're working together with a client. There's all kinds of reasons that you talk to them.
From people I've talked to, most CFPs or most planners you need an assistant. You need someone taking care of someone to help you. Maybe they're really good at admin stuff. They're doing the stuff that doesn't require you to be like a full CFP to do. Like once the plan is done, maintenance, follow up to help you stay on track.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's a good partnership.
We have 4 of us working there now.
Yeah. Who else?
We have another full-time planner that's a CFP.
Yeah.
And plus a full-time admin person.
Okay. And so, like, once you started this is what you've been doing for like 22 years. Is that basically?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. So, okay.
26 years now.
26. Yeah. So wait, you said 97. You started before that.
That was when I was full-time.
Yes, of course. So
94 is when I started as a side hustle. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been doing this for a while, and I think you probably have a number of how many plans you've done.
I've written over 1,000 financial plans.
Yes.
In total. So, early when I got into the career, everybody was all about, it's just about selling mutual funds and selling insurance. That's all it was. But to me, it was always, I took these courses and they taught about financial planning. So, dumb me, I thought, okay, I'm going to do planning. So, so I just focused entirely on planning. And I found out very quickly that there was like no competition in Canada. Everybody else is just selling stuff. But, when you're actually writing a financial plan, hardly anybody in Canada, if you find people who actually has a written financial plan that has all their goals, like when they're going to retire specifically, that they're following, and you'll find it's probably less than 1% of Canadians. So
people started within, like, this was late 90s, early 2000s. I'm sure it was, investments first, right? And then you get a plan as part of your investments, and that they get paid out of the investments. That's basically, how are you getting paid at the time?
Well, I was still doing investments.
That was the model at the time.
But it was all about, you talk to people first, you do a financial plan first.
Yes.
And that's what leads everything. And then, of course, most people need to be doing investing, but whatever's in the plan is what we implement, right? Well, for most people, it's forget the planning. Most advisors, it was just forget the planning.
They would forget the plan. They wouldn't even do it.
Yeah, you know what? Here's a stat. Their stat is not published, but I know lots and lots of financial planners.
Sure.
Here's my number: less than 3% of financial planners have written even a single financial plan in their career.
Is this someone who has the CFP designation? Is that what you mean?
Even CFPs, yeah. I think I don't know. I don't know the stat, but
no.
I'll bet you that less than 5% of certified financial planners have
really
written more than, like, you have to write one financial plan to get your CFP, the sample one.
Sure.
The 95% of CFPs have probably not written another one of that quality.
Yeah, because you got a comprehensive one.
Yeah, a comprehensive one, right? It's people do a one-off on one little thing, or what I find is a lot of the financial planning software is built for what I call a fake plan. You put in the client's name and address, you put in their income,
yes,
and it's a bunch of assumptions. It prints off a bunch of glossies. There's your financial plan. Now let's talk about investments.
I've used these,
right?
Yeah,
and it's 10 minutes. I've had people say, "I got a financial plan." I went to the bank. I said, "How long did it take?" 10 minutes. What does the plan say? What are you supposed to do? When are you retiring? I don't know. What's the lifestyle when you're retiring? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you have to do to get there? I don't know. Where is your plan? I don't know. Okay,
yeah.
You don't have a plan.
You should have it like in your email or in your hand if it's printed.
Yeah, if you have a financial plan, you should know I'm retiring when I'm 62 on $97,000 a year.
Yeah,
and that includes $15,000 a year for travel. And to get there, I have to put $15,000 a year into my RSP.
Because you had that conversation about and you want money for travel or whatever it is you want.
You decide on the lifestyle you want to have when you retire.
Right.
Then you work out exactly how much you need before and after tax. You work back. So to get there, how much do I have to put away, and what kind of return do I have to make on it? And you make a plan, and then you do it. So you should know exactly how much you have to put away every year and how you have to invest it. And if you don't know that, you don't have a plan.
No, you don't have a plan.
It's the GPS for your life.
Do you not use any financial planning software?
I use one, but it's a fairly simple software.
Yeah.
But it's something that I can do to me, as financial planning has to be done together with the client.
Yes.
Right? So I sit down with you and we look at, okay, this is how much we work out. First of all, what's your cash? What's your lifestyle now?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you want to retire, and we'll work it out very specifically, before and after tax.
Yeah.
Now we plug it into the financial planning software. And so you want to retire at 55.
Sure.
And say, okay, to get there, you have to invest, $5,000 a month. You say, I can't do that. All right. Let's try something else. So we talk about, what asset allocation you're going to have, like what kind of rate of return are we going to get?
Yeah, exactly.
What pensions you have, and then we're looking at, there's a number of different factors. So very often the first draft of how you want to retire is just
the first draft. Yeah,
it's not possible.
No.
So now we think, okay, so what do you have to do? You either have to work longer, or you have to invest more.
Yeah.
Right. Or you have to retire on less, so we can go back to the goal we set and retire on less.
Yeah, reevaluate.
Or we can invest differently. So let's just look at all these options, and let's work out something that's believable, that you think you can do, and that is a good goal for you. And now we have a plan, right?
And this is not a short process for you.
It takes quite a while. Like usually the main planning meeting, people actually enjoy it because it's not a bunch of numbers. It's all about
exploration.
It's all about your life. How do you want to live?
Discussion, discovery.
Yes, and I can tell you very quickly, that way is not. Yes, you want to retire on really luxurious 55. Okay, but you know what? You're not going to like what you have to do to get there. So let's talk about what you can reasonably do. And so the first meeting usually is 3, 4, 5 hours long.
Not all at once.
All at once. One long meeting. All
People come in for
life.
the day, like you.
Yes.
Or you go to them. How does it work? Online.
Online, or they come to my office.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's one long meeting, but we get the first draft of it there, and I get all the information about the client. And then there might be some things to get afterwards. But then after that, I'll do all the projections, and I'll kind of see if I come up with a better idea than what we had in the meeting. But I've already got the goal, and I know all the different parts of the client, and then we'll write the whole plan. The plan is usually 8 or 10 pages that are custom written specifically for you.
Yeah.
Plus, 10 or 20 pages of schedules and attachments, and
which that's the stuff that you put into you plunk some of the numbers into financial planning software.
Yeah, that's what,
because you have to have
out.
Something that has been vetted as including up-to-date government benefits, right?
Yes.
That's one of the harder things for, like, if I'm doing my retirement plan in Excel, I can't figure out what my CPP and OAS is going to be, right?
Right.
So that you need software for that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You can look those things up, but
you can look at tables. I guess you could look at tables.
If people have a pension, they have a group plan at work, and we have your RSPs and whatever investments, and it's. We also, part of the plan is we're looking at where should you be investing, RSP or TFSA, or
based on whatever availability you have in your accounts and your tax situation, however much money you're making now, those kinds of things.
Right. Yes.
Are people of different ages when they come into you, or is there?
We've done all different ages.
Is there a typical age when people come?
Well, what happens, Bo, is most people kind of wander through life when they're young, and at some point they wake up and realize, you know what, I should be doing something smarter with my money. Yeah. And for most people, they're like in their 40s when it happens. Some people are in their 30s. Occasionally I get people in their 20s that are already, I want to build wealth. But I get some that are in their 60s. Oh, I want to retire next year. What can we do?
It's next year. Okay.
I can't do a lot in 1 year.
Time travel.
Yeah.
Right? Is that your answer? Let's go.
Well, in that case, you just do the best you can. So basically, however they want to retire, it's not happening.
But at least you can prove it to them, right?
Yes, but we can, let's look at your situation. What's the best we can do given what we hear? If you're in your 40s, you can... usually, if you start in your 30s, you can usually get, and you invest effectively and put reasonable amount away, you can usually get pretty well whatever you want. Yeah. You start in your 40s, it takes some work, but you can get mostly what you want. You start in your 50s, we're in compromise mode.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. You're not
getting all of it.
One vacation.
You have to put away more than you might like to do, but you're in compromise mode. In 60s, of course, it's
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the 20s, though, if anyone comes to you in your 20s, like, can you probably get them into early retirement? Is that like if somebody really starts? Yeah,
you gotta, some people just spend everything they make. But
sure,
we're getting kids of clients now that just finished university and have a good paying job.
Yeah.
So they come to me, they're 25 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they're already making $80,000 a year. Before you get comfortable with a big lifestyle.
Please, don't.
Let's start putting a good amount away early, and then retiring early. All these things are easily possible if you start when you're young.
Have you been able to convince somebody who's 25 to just go for it, or is it hard?
I can educate people, but I find the motivation has to come from within.
Sure.
I've met a fair number of people in their 20s that are just motivated, and I can easily help them.
Okay, good.
You can retire early.
Yeah.
If somebody, you can't convince somebody.
No, you can't.
If they don't want to do it, I can educate them and show them the benefit of it and tell them what to do.
But it won't work if they're not ready.
For most people in their 20s, long term is, the weekend.
That's
right. So I'm talking, 20, 30 years. And of course, if you start when you're 25 and you invest a comfortable amount for 30 years, you can retire at 55 and really comfortably.
Okay, yeah. So you're financial planner, you got clients, and your wife has joined you at this point?
Yes.
Yet?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm focusing just mainly on financial planning, and things are building up pretty quickly. And it's, the late 90s, so it's a tech bubble. So that was when, looking back, I was still pretty, I started off like most people do investing, where you just follow the crowd.
Yeah.
Right? And at that time, everybody was buying tech stocks, so
So you did too?
Of course, yeah, we're buying.
Okay.
Buying, not everything, but a good exposure to it. And
yeah.
Of course, that's kind of that's a big lesson learned about following the crowd or whatever they're doing.
What happened?
Because, of course, we had great returns for a few years, and then we had a big fall, right?
Yeah.
So,
but you were it affected. You said you had exposure to it, but not like you're buying all of your money.
Yeah, it was a portion. Like quite a few clients had tech stocks or growth funds or something. So
you'd recommend a portion of their portfolio be in tech stocks.
Yeah, at the time, yes.
Yes.
At the time, we were putting a portion into it.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just because tech had been doing well, and
sure.
you just keep thinking, it's going to do well. Everybody's buying tech, and
so you learned. Yeah.
I learned about, and that was the last time in my career we got caught up in a bubble.
Yes.
Now I recognize it. Whenever you see the masses all doing something.
Yes, don't do that.
Don't do that. Like we had the income trust bubble. Everybody was piling in income trusts in around 2006, 2007.
Because of government rules were around income
and they
trusts?
changed. Yeah, to me, it didn't look didn't look sustainable. People were buying things because it paid a high amount out, but it wasn't necessarily the profit it was making. Like people weren't looking at the rate of return of their investment. They're just looking at how much it pays out, and a lot of them were artificially inflated. Of course, the government came down and shut it down.
Yeah.
Again, a bubble that ended. Now we're in it. To me, what I was at a dividend bubble. Like if you meet someone who's picking their own stocks today, 90% of them. I think the tech bubble was probably 60 or 70 people were largely in tech.
Sure.
The dividend bubble today, probably 90% of individual stock investors are buying dividend stocks. Everybody's buying.
Are we still in? Are you saying we're still in it?
Still, yeah. Even though they outperformed until 2015 and they've been lagging the last 4 years, and probably will continue. Everybody's buying dividend stocks now. If you know someone buying their own stocks, ask them what they're buying. Dividend will be one of the first words out. Almost everybody.
What should they be doing? Are like diversifying first of all, but
to me, it's we're looking for long-term total return.
Yeah,
and you know what? Most stocks pay dividends.
Yeah,
so it's not like I'm not saying to avoid dividends, but I'm saying don't buy something just because it has a dividend.
Yeah, like the best dividend, but you don't care about anything about the company.
Right, and also if you're buying dividend stocks, you tend to be all in Canada because that's the ones that have the preferred tax rates.
I know, and people will buy. Like if you have only Canadian tax eligible dividends as income, well, you don't pay tax for up to what, 40 grand or 50 grand now?
Well, see, that's actually a bit of a misnomer. So
it is, eh? Okay, good.
You can make about 55,000 with no tax if you
only dividends.
If you have only Canadian dividends,
eligible dividends,
and you have no other income.
No other income.
But people miss the other part. No other income.
Yeah.
Not married.
Oh.
Because if you have a spouse that's earning income,
that counts.
They will lose.
Interesting.
They'll have they're claiming you as a dependent. They lose 30%.
Okay.
Based on that, right? Also, it doesn't work when you're 65. When you're retired, it doesn't work at all. Because if you have no other income, you get the guaranteed income supplement.
Then that goes.
If your Canadian eligible dividend, there's a 69% clawback on the GIS. So if you're 65 and have no other income and you apply for the old age security, you get this GIS. If I get a $10,000 dividend, I lose $6,900 of my government pension because of a dividend. So it doesn't work at all when you're over 65. So this misnomer about it.
It's so specific, right?
So specific.
And everybody's like, you can make free money, like getting no tax.
No other income, single and under 65.
Wow. Okay. So that very few people have no other income because otherwise, how are you getting those dividend stocks in the first place, right? And then by the time you have enough to only make $55,000 from dividends, you're 65.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, 'cause I know people are trying to save up with dividends, and the idea is they're going to quit their job, and the dividends are going to sustain them. But first of all, you know what? They're not buying necessarily the stocks with the highest long-term total return.
No.
They're just buying these dividend stocks. Secondly, they're all in Canada, which is not diversified and is slower growth. And they're paying taxes every year when you could buy. So the lowest taxes are actually deferred capital gains. So capital gains have lower taxes.
50% of your rate.
Yes.
Right?
So they have lower taxes like dividends do. They're a little bit different, but lower tax. The big difference is dividends you always pay tax this year.
Yep.
Capital gains, I can defer that for 20 years, right? I can buy a stock and hold it for 20 years.
If I want to, I can just wait.
The way you do it is you just hold your investment. You just let it grow.
Oh, sorry. Right. Of course. You can defer the capital gains by not cashing in the
by
stocks.
Not cashing in,
of
right?
course.
You can defer it.
That makes sense.
So, would you rather pay your dividend 10 or 20% dividend tax this year, or 20% capital gains tax 20 years from now?
Because dividends you get paid out quarterly or annually.
You can't defer them.
Yeah,
you get
monthly.
them that year, or you're taxed that year. Right?
Yeah. So, that's very interesting. So you can see something growing in your account. I mean, let's just say it's a taxable account. And as long as you don't get any income from it, which is dividends, you can see it growing, and it might be doubled in value, but you don't pay any tax until you're ready. Yeah,
Right,
I like
exactly.
that.
So-
I like that. Okay, so back to you.
So after that was when I was like I started investing lousy like everybody, following the crowd.
Yeah,
I tried getting into spreadsheets where I was going to I was trying to do market timing with this massive spreadsheet. I
Really?
did that for a few years.
okay.
And I realized none of this does it. None of this works.
So you're learning
Right.
investing on the job.
I'm just trying to figure out how to do it effectively.
Sure.
And then what changed my life is I took a hedge fund course.
Okay.
So a program came out that was only out for a little while called the Certified Hedge Fund Specialist. It was really in depth. It was like university level. What I learned there, so hedge funds, they're actually very complex. There's 14 different categories of strategies, all kinds of different things that all kinds of complicated things that they can do. But they're all about having the really good fund manager.
Okay.
Right? So generally the saying is with the mutual fund, it's 80% market, 20%
Manager.
good manager.
And actively managed, yeah.
Right. Hedge funds, it's the opposite. It's 80% having a good manager, 20% the market. Because
Really?
they can hedge out. A lot of the strategies, they can hedge out market risk. So if you hedge out market risk, then your return is all based on how good the manager is.
So that makes sense. That's very skill-based, that one then.
It's very skill-based.
Yeah.
And so I learned from that to how to identify who a really good fund manager is.
Okay.
And I carried that into other kinds of investing. And that became my investing skill. I finally realized, rather than trying to outguess everything myself, I'm not investing full-time. The best way I found to invest is find the best people. Just like I'm not going to be an NHL hockey player, but I can recognize a really good hockey player. So I can tell you who the all-stars are in the NHL. Same thing investing, right? I'm not the world's best investor is not me, but I can look around and I can figure out who they are. So let's just invest with them. And that's become my investing philosophy ever since then.
Yeah.
It all started with that hedge fund course.
Have you modified that to include ETFs and index funds and stuff as well? How are you looking at investing today?
Everything that I recommend is all about the fund manager. So
interesting.
To me, I mean ETFs. If it was actively managed with an exceptional fund manager, that's fine. Like ETFs
okay. So you don't do
method.
passive investments.
I don't do passive because So I'm the first one to say most mutual funds are crap. However, there are, and it's mostly because most of them are closet indexers. Like in Canada, 70% are closet indexers.
Yeah, basically.
You look at
they just charge more.
You look at a Canadian equity fund, and you look in the top 10, there are 4 banks.
Yeah.
It's a closet index fund. You're better off buying the index.
But they're just assigning a manager to manage the fund to justify charging more fees.
Yes, and the fund managers will talk about I'm overweight by 5% on this sector and underweight by 5% on this sector.
Okay.
This is a closet indexer. But there are some really great fund managers out there. There's fund managers with 30-year track records ahead of Warren Buffett.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are out there. So let's go out and find, and they do, their portfolios are completely different than the index. They're true, really great investors.
That's fascinating.
And so these kind of guys are out there. So that's the kind of investing that I'm doing, all looking for people like that.
So you do that for yourself, and you will recommend that for clients when they're doing the investing part, or you're recommending them to these portfolio managers.
Right now, I'm working with portfolio managers. Yeah, I'm working with 2 portfolio managers. One of them is doing an all-star approach, where they're finding mutual funds or ETFs with these great fund managers.
Yep.
All-star approach. The other one is an index type approach, and it's a guy who specifically is trying to beat. He does a portfolio of whatever indexes, and he specifically tries to beat the index. And the unique thing about him is his fee is mainly based on how much he beats the index, a performance fee.
Interesting. These are all. So it depends on what your risk tolerance. And would you like? Are there people who come to you who qualify for, I'm just going to send them to a robo-advisor? Would you, is that part of your clientele?
Well, actually, you know what? I'm set up with some robo-advisors. I haven't actually referred anybody.
Nobody yet,
to me, I'd always want to. I always think there's better options.
Yeah, and
investment.
Well, you know what you're talking about. That's the difference, right? It's like if somebody else tried to find the best portfolio manager or fund managers, right? That would be tough, right?
Yeah,
so
the robo-advisors, I don't know if they really add much stock, ETF selection. They're basically getting indexes. And indexes, of course, if you're buying ETFs, you don't get the return of the index. You're somewhat less based on their MER.
Yeah, they have very low MER, but
there's a
robo
tracking
fee.
There's a tracking error. So ETFs don't make the index. Like the global, for example, the global ETFs, most of them are 0.5% or 1% below with a total tracking error.
Okay.
And then if you're with a robo-advisor, they're charging 0.5%. I always look at, so what I charge for a full service.
Yeah.
All the planning, tax returns, referral to great portfolio managers, advice in every area. I charge 1%. Robo-advisors charging 0.5%. That almost that's less than 5% of what I do.
Yeah,
I know. Everybody thinks of them as cheap. I think of them as really expensive.
So, is your model a percent of assets under management, or do you do flat fee as well?
For full service ongoing,
that's right.
Initially, to write a financial plan, I charge a one-time fee for a plan.
Yeah.
It's a one-time thing. You get this document.
Yes.
Then, if they want to work full service, it's a percentage of your assets under management.
Yeah.
And it's scaled down. It gets smaller.
Because you're actively managing these. I mean, through your portfolio managers.
Yeah. I mean, all I'm doing is I'm studying portfolio managers and finding ones that are really good, and I'm watching them because we'll go to a different portfolio manager if we want.
Yes.
But really, I'm spending my time doing all your planning. That's what I do. We review your plan. Every year we review your plan. Are you on track? Does the plan still make sense? Do we want to change something? What are you supposed to be doing this year? How's your cash flow? Where's your mortgage? What are your debts?
That's
what
the
is
value.
Your taxes?
Yeah.
I'm spending time doing all that part. And you know what? That's the part where people get messed up. Most people need way more help there
than they do in picking the investments. A lot of people are fine with just the passive investing part, right? I mean, you might even agree, as long as somebody's just putting something somewhere, it's better than nothing. But if they don't have a good plan to tell them what to put and what accounts to put them into,
passive investing is not bad.
Yeah, right. It's like the levels. It's not bad, but
I know
not
enough.
Great.
I would never be happy with it.
You wouldn't
because I think we could do better. But it's not bad, and it's certainly better than getting a run-of-the-mill mutual fund out there.
If somebody came to me and they wanted something more robust, I would send them to you. Absolutely, right? And I've mentioned you to my parents because they are retired, and there are very specific situations, like, if a 20-year-old just wants to start investing, they might be just fine going to a robo, right? But when they come to the point where they're like, I'd like a plan, like you said, when people wake up, in their 30s?
Different for everybody.
But
most people, it's often late 30s, early 40s before they really wake up.
But that's I would say, Ed does comprehensive plans, and he, he's going to look out for you.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
You know what? I look at it as like a GPS. You want to get from here to Florida. Investing in equities is like driving a car. Bonds is like walking, right? And so the first thing these people want is, I want to get in a car and drive fast. My first thought is, get which direction you go.
GPS.
Get a GPS and get the route figured out, because that's the single most important thing at first. Get the route figured out.
I like that. Okay, I think we're going to have to stop on your story, even though I'm sure you have more on that list to talk about. We're going to move on for today. We're going to stop the episode, but we're going to resume, and there's going to be a part 2 with Ed Rempel, and it's going to be my first one. It's going to be a 3-hour podcast. without being all 3 hours, just because I don't have time.
Hopefully the next part's only an hour.
Well, if anybody can stretch it, I can.
Yes.
So we can
talk about blogging and
exactly. We can talk about, because you've had a very long career in financial planning. I want to talk about where you ended up, how you got to today, and also you are the expert in retirement strategies. So we have to talk about those things. All right?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, thanks for coming on today. Thanks for coming out. But yeah, we'll resume this. Let's just say in a couple of months, and it'll be great. But
Perfect.
Today, I really enjoyed this today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. We had lots of fun.
And that was episode 83 with Ed Rempel. As I said at the top of the show, there will be a part 2, as Ed has so much more to share with us. We haven't booked or recorded it yet, but it will be in 2019, so stay tuned for that. If you're a regular listener, thanks so much for downloading the episodes every week. Another way you can support the podcast is by going to my Patreon site and becoming a patron. Just head over to patreon.com/BoHumphreys. That's Patreon. I am a co-host and the technical producer of a new podcast called Dear Ruby with my friend and personal finance expert, Rubina Ahmed Haq. Head over to dearruby.com, that's DearRubi.com, to check out the first 3 episodes and let us know what you think by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. So this is the part of the show where I talk about some of the things I do other than this weekly podcast. Currently, a lot of my time is spent with my new baby boy, Henry, who was born on February 1st, 2019. One of the awesome bonuses of working for myself and setting my own hours is that I get to be around to take care of my son. So that's probably the biggest news in my life right now. But if you want to know more about me and read my story of addiction and recovery, head over to bohumphreys.com. I have a personal finance webinar coming up in 2 weeks on Wednesday, June 5th, 2019 at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Michelle Hung from episode 70 of the podcast will be joining me for a webinar we're calling Lunchtime with Bo and Michelle. So if you ever wanted to ask me or Michelle a question about pretty much anything, this is your opportunity. To register for the webinar, click the link in the show notes or head over to bohumphreys.com/webinar. My personal finance blog is investwisely.ca. If you want to be notified when I publish a blog post, head over to investwisely.ca and sign up for my email list. And I am a personal finance coach, so if you're looking for someone to help you get organized and simplify your financial life, let me know. Sometimes all we need is some accountability to get things moving. You can email me at bo@bohumphreys.com. That's it for this episode. I'll be back next week with Sandy Young, author of the upcoming book, The Money Master.